We have so much trouble with bringing people like Mark Zuckerberg to account. He seems to be able to get away with nearly everything. The UK wasn't even able to get Mark Zuckerberg to show up in Parliament. I mean, that's insane.
Look, would you show up in Parliament? We'd be most dreadfully grateful. No. Okay, sorry, shouldn't have asked. Like, subscribe. Facebook are continuing to ban Donald Trump. Well, it's not a ban, it's an ongoing suspension, and the amount of control that they have and the way that an internal process is being presented as a judicial process is interesting. Meanwhile, Twitter are refusing to verify congressional candidates. Has social media reached the point where its power dwarfs political power? Who are the real tyrants? Political demagogues like Donald Trump, or the immense, enormous, unaccountable power of big tech giants?
Facebook fury this morning with new reaction from the former president's conservative allies after the social media company's oversight board upheld Donald Trump's suspension from the site.
What I really like is this bit of writing by Zephyr Teachout in the Daily Beast, who points out that this is being treated as if it's a court hearing, the language, the nature of reporting, but actually the people that came to this conclusion were hired by and paid for by Facebook. How much objectivity could you possibly get in a situation where all of the power, all of the money, all of the control is coming from Facebook? This is clearly an attempt to avoid regulation by pretending to regulate yourself. You don't need to regulate me, I'll regulate me. This is exactly the kind of rhetoric that on an individual level many people are deploying. Hey, I don't want the government involved in controlling me. I don't want corporations dominating my life. Well, people that use that on an individual or even local level are kind of laughed out of court. Real courts, not hokey-cokey kangaroo courts made up by Mark Zuckerberg. What's happened is Facebook, much like many other big corporations that pay outside consultants huge fees to help make decisions, hired a bunch of elites with good CVs and then gave them a tiny slice of corporate decision making to review. The grandiosely named Oversight Board, which ruled that Donald Trump can't yet rejoin Facebook and Instagram, actually lacks any capacity to understand the financial motivations and metrics behind Facebook's decisions or to mandate different business models. It's simply a corporate consultancy rebranded as an oversight board. Zephyr Teachout goes on to say this should be regarded as a publicity stunt, a PR stunt, more than any kind of ruling. Now, I know loads of you really love Donald Trump and thought that he was a sort of swamp draining political pugilist that changed up the political landscape, and it's easier to be sympathetic towards you when you see that what follows in Joe Biden is in many significant ways indistinguishable, or you might argue worse than what preceded it. You will know that I'm not like a pro Donald Trump person, but I'm certainly anti-mainstream dominator politics. And I feel that what this story shows us is that Trump rose to power via Facebook, Twitter and social media, and has now been dispatched by Facebook and social media. What does that suggest to you? I'll tell you what it suggests to me, that the power of a president is nothing compared to the power of Facebook and other social media entities. And in fact, to waste your time discussing that power, the nuances, inflections and particularities of that power, the style of it, is irrelevant, because it can be put there, it can be taken away, put there, taken away. You know, this comes at a time when we have learned that the Democratic Party, some people have alleged, would rather have a term of Donald Trump than a term of their own potential candidate, Bernie Sanders. So what does that show you about the apparent political class? They're like a little layer of cream over a great big mighty dense and frankly inedible corporate cake presented by big tech. This stuff is just decorative. The real issue is the corporate power exercised by big tech.
Now the company's oversight board, which is made up of human rights lawyers, constitutional law experts, a Nobel Prize winner, and even the former president of Denmark, decided to uphold that ban.
They just made that court up themselves. I mean, they were nice people. When I saw them scanning by, I thought, oh, they're nice, you know, cool, good variety, nice diversity, all of those kind of things that are encouraging. But the fact is, those people are being paid for by Facebook. So essentially what we're seeing is Facebook kind of becoming a nation with their own institutions, with their own population that manage information, that can say this information, for example, about coronavirus or terrorism or conflict, we're going to promote. This information about coronavirus, terrorism or conflict, we're going to denigrate, relegate, conceal. That's controlling reality. That's reality itself. I.e., if there is no objective reality, just limitless variable perceptions, you could argue this, then the people that control those perceptions control reality. Now look at the scale to which they are doing that. If a figure like Donald Trump, no matter what you think of him, can rise to the position of president as a result of social media power, then be removed entirely from the political landscape as a result of Facebook's power, then it's such a glaring, obvious revelation of what real power is and what real power isn't. If he continues to be banned, the potential resurgence of Donald Trump, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, can't ever happen. Not to mention Twitter are, of course, as I said in the introduction, refusing to verify the accounts of political candidates, which hurts their ability to campaign. Now, even if that suits you right now, because they're the type of political candidates that you like or dislike or whatever it is, one day they're coming for you. See, imagine that you're like a person who doesn't like Donald Trump at all, don't like what he stands for, don't like some of the things he said that you found particularly glaring, some people found particularly glaring or alienating. Well, what if next time populism produces a super right-on, liberal, down with it kind of leftist figure? Facebook aren't going to like that either. Not if that represents potential impediments to their business model. Facebook is the Facebook machine. It don't like anything that messes with Facebook. If Donald Trump's good for Facebook, have a Donald Trump. Donald Trump not good for Facebook, don't have a Donald Trump.
However, the board went on to say it was not appropriate for Facebook to impose the indeterminate and standardless penalty of indefinite suspension, telling Facebook to review the matter within 6 months.
Well, all they've got to do is review it in 6 months. They're sort of doing what they want. Indeterminate, standardless. That means that they've not got an external reference point, or like in terms of time, space, or what's right and wrong. That's what standards mean. So, for me, in a sense, it's interesting that it's Donald Trump, even for me as a person who would disagree with many, many of the things that Donald Trump said and did. I still feel that what this is, and I wouldn't even get particularly bogged down in whether or not he has the right to say or do them. I'm interested instead in check out what Facebook can do. Check out what Facebook are able to do, not do, reveal, not reveal, control, not control. That's where power is now. What we're interested in is power. Now, of course, governments are not, little Peabody nitwits. They're able to provide legislation. They're able to enforce regulation. Why aren't they? What does that show? Why is there no congressional committee going, hang on a minute, you can't just do this, put him back on Facebook, or this is how we want it to be handled? Because this is a gesture. It's one interwoven thing.
Trump's Facebook posts in the home stretch of the election had some 336 million interactions. Biden's drew a comparatively small 48 million interactions. Cable news segments on Trump have plummeted. Google search traffic for his name has returned to levels not seen since before he started his presidential run. Social media interactions about Trump have dropped an astounding 91% since he had his accounts removed on every major site.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it? That Donald Trump, who loomed over the landscape, a Goliath, primarily on mainstream media as a figure of derision and loathing, an embodiment of many things that the culture denied and denounced. Significantly, though, it seems like it was a kind of rejection of something that opposed the flow of power. Because now that Trump has been removed, Trump has been eliminated from sort of the public imagination. What does that mean? What does that tell us? It tells us that social media companies are more powerful than political parties, and political parties are unwilling to use the power that they have in order to arrest the interests of social media. And that means actually that ordinary people would just little rivulets of spit running down this mighty vehicle, this juggernaut of power racing towards a future that I don't much care for.
Clicks on Trump-related news stories, they have fallen precipitously as well. They dropped 80% from January to February, another 56% from February to March, and another 40% from March to April.
Fordham law professor Zephyr Teachout says Facebook's authoritarianism is a terrible response to Trump's dangerous lies and bigotry. The enemy of your enemy is not your friend. They represent two competing visions of abuse of power. The minute we start anticipating a corporate decision with the intensity that we anticipate today's decision is the minute we should realise Facebook is way too powerful. It controls the faucets on the flow of information and decides which news stories thrive and which ones are hidden. What is scientifically backed COVID advice and what is not? What is terrorism and what is expression? And what constitutes a conspiracy and what does not? And all of this is based on cash flow. Now, wherever you stand on COVID, terrorism, any of the things listed there, it sort of doesn't matter. What matters is where Facebook stands on it, because that's the reality that's going to be proliferated.
The new decision highlighting the power of platforms like Facebook and whether the government should do more to regulate them.
In a recent episode of Under the Skin, my podcast on Luminary, I spoke to Brittany Kaiser, who you may know from the Cambridge Analytica scandal that blew up around Brexit and the elections around Brexit in the UK.
Facebook has a policy that they say they don't want to censor politicians, but that's not what we're asking them to do. The censorship is when you are you're deleting content that should otherwise be heard, and that person has the right to free speech. The right to free speech is not an unchecked right. I have no right to incite violence upon you. I have no right to slander and libel you. I have no right to make people hate you for your race. Incitement of racial hatred is something that unfortunately comes out of a lot of political campaigns these days. Those are laws that we already have.
I like that point. A lot of the time that people cite reasons for corporate censorship, which is what this is based upon precisely what Brittany Kaiser just outlined there. It's incendiary, it's causing social conflict. We already have laws for that. There are laws for that already. Enforce the existing laws. Don't create new ones at a massive company that are not regulated by anyone other than people that are being employed by them.
And that's really where we have the biggest issue at the moment, enforcing the laws that we already have on big corporates who seem to, just be able to get away with it. We have so much trouble with bringing people like Mark Zuckerberg to account. He seems to be able to get away with nearly everything because his company has such a strong presence in every country in the world. So every country individually has to take up legal issues with Facebook and complaints. And, the UK wasn't even able to get Mark Zuckerberg to show up in Parliament. I mean, that's insane.
Look, would you show up in Parliament? We'd be most dreadfully grateful. No. Okay, sorry, shouldn't have asked. Like, subscribe.
I think what Mark's problem is that he's just memorized a lot of lines from his lawyers and is afraid to be caught off guard. his testimony in Congress in the US was majorly embarrassing. It revealed that there is a lot of information that Mark pretends not to know, that Facebook is claiming false claims on when they knew about certain things, when they did and did not take action.
Facebook is a company that has little public trust for good reason. Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and their PR machine continually leak, lie and break the law. There's reason to think executives could be prosecuted criminally because of price-fixing allegations in current cases. Having monopolised social media, it steals from small businesses that pay jacked-up advertising costs because they have no choice. The quality is horrific, the platform abuses people's privacy with abandon and is swampy with misinformation. But again, small and local advertisers have no choice. What are they going to do? Advertise on Facebook-owned Instagram in protest. Anytime you use the word court or legitimise this panel's decision by taking it seriously, you are part of Facebook's effort to distract from the corporate and democratic disaster that it is. I can't imagine that Facebook began with these kind of intentions, although I know there are many people that query the Facebook origin story and feel that it is an integral part of the machinery of power that couldn't possibly have such sort of humble origins in the mind and imagination of a single Harvard student. My feeling is that if governments can do anything these days, it surely impose regulation on behalf of the citizens of the country it's the government for, in order that they can live better, freer, safer lives. And if a government doesn't do that, then the government is in league with those corporations, has the same interests as those corporations. I can't believe that beyond the motive of making money lie more nefarious intentions. Surely there's nothing more than that. Surely these corporations are simply trying to make a profit for themselves and for their shareholders and all those kind of ordinary, mundane, but curiously attractive and potent financial incentives. Surely there's nothing more than that. But if there isn't, then what ought be done is meaningful regulation should be imposed immediately. Don't you think that these companies should be broken up? And in fact, you know, beyond that, once you start thinking about it, organisations of this size that only exist to make money are always going to create complications. You sort of can't handle it, or society can't handle this kind of concentration of power. It should be decentralised, it should be broken up, there should be some initial regulation and some stated explicit principles that prevent power ever becoming concentrated in this way again. And things like Facebook should be a tool. They became things that we couldn't possibly have anticipated by virtue of the fact that they were new technologies. But now that they are these things, we should recognise that they are the perfect demonstration of the way that power has gone awry, the way that power has become disconnected from the people that power is supposed to serve. I suppose Facebook is an indication of the lopsided hierarchical principles of late capitalist ideology, i.e., a disregard for the impact on ordinary people of their practices, a kind of giddy abandonment in the pursuit of whatever goals and objectives operate at this rarefied and elite level. If you agree with this analysis, please like, subscribe, share, possibly on Facebook or wherever it is you consume this social media. Noting the irony as you do so, please sign up to my mailing list, russellbrand.com, in case I ever need direct contact to you, with you, for you. Who knows? But my sense is that at the moment I'm still a little flibbity gibbet nitwit on the back of a mighty beast that barely knows that I'm there, and long may that continue. Sign up to the mailing list nonetheless at russellbrand.com. I call it an ARC now, like a survival unit. Hope you enjoyed it. Stick some comments underneath this. I read the comments and sometimes we respond to them. Thanks, guys.